Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to a special coverage on Nile TV International discussing the latest events right now, in which the Kingdom of Bahrain, the Republic of Egypt, the Republic of Indonesia, Kingdom of Jordan, and the Republic of Nigeria, the State of Palestine, Qatar, and the Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, and the Arab states, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation strongly condemn the Israeli Knesset's approval of the declaration calling for the imposition of the so-called Israeli sovereignty over the occupied West Bank, considering it a blatant and unacceptable violation of the international law and a flagrant breach of the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. All these countries reaffirm that Israel has no sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territory, stressing that this unilateral Israeli move has no legal effect and cannot alter the legal status of the occupied Palestinian territory. To shed more light on this issue, discussing the joint statement, its implications, and what it means for the future of the Palestinian issue and regional stability, we are joined over the phone call by the Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon to you.
First of all, as different countries such as Egypt, Bahrain, Indonesia, and others have all jointly condemned the Israeli Knesset decision regarding the West Bank. How significant is this broad group of countries and organizations from the Arab world, Africa, Asia, as they are taking a united stance on the issue, and what is the impact of this coalition on the international response?
Well, first of all, we have to mention that although this is a very important position of the above-mentioned countries, but I think that it is just a step to consolidate and to reaffirm our permanent position on the issue. However, these statements and others actually did not deter Israel from continuing what it's doing. We remember, for instance, the annexation of East Jerusalem and considering it as a united capital of Israel supported by the United States. And although there was different and similar statements from many countries, but the situation is still the same. But it's quite important to mark our position regarding this issue. As what is our concern regarding the latest Israeli Knesset decision to annex vast areas of the West Bank, I think it's a blatant and explicit declaration of Israel's intent to finalize the liquidation of the Palestinian cause. This move is really a flagrant violation of the international law and UN resolutions affirming the Palestinian people's right to an independent state with East Jerusalem as a capital. What we are witnessing today is not just a unilateral step, but a dangerous escalation aimed at completely erasing Palestinian rights. It is a part of an ongoing policy of ethnic cleansing and total denial of Palestinian rights, demonstrating that Israel rejects any recognition of Palestinian statehood under any name or form. And I believe that this is the most important thing. Actually, furthermore, I think it's deeply troubling how also the United Nations Security Council, because the statement that we mentioned right in our first intervention, we are talking about calling upon the Security Council to take the necessary measures. But we've seen how the United Nations Security Council has utterly failed to fulfill its role in deterring Israel's ongoing genocidal campaign. And despite numerous violations and calls for accountability, every attempt to pass a resolution that would pressure or sanction Israel has been blocked by the United States exercising its veto powers. This absolute U.S. support in the Security Council not only paralyzes international action, but emboldens and encourages Israel to continue its war against the Palestinian people with total impunity. The result is a complete erosion of international law and world justice, leaving Palestinians totally defenseless before an occupation backed by the most powerful nation on earth. And this is really troubling, is to see how such a position is adopted easily and supported even by the United States. Of
Right.
course, if I may add about the European position, and I think it's very important to talk about the European position because we've seen some evolvement in the European position. However, although Europe often presents itself as a more ethical and sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, providing occasionally even humanitarian aid and issuing statements of condemnation and also criticizing Israel, I think that there is a mere, what's going on is a mere facade to conceal the real position of Europe. I mean, the stance of Europe has always given the impression of empathy, but refuses to impose any real sanctions on Israel, effectively making itself complicit in the ongoing crime. And if I may, to illustrate this more clearly, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe imposed a series of strict and escalating sanctions on Russia, starting within 2 weeks of the invasion. And today, as we speak, we are witnessing the 18th package of sanctions against Russia being implemented and applied with all sincerity. This clearly proves that Europe has the means, the ability, and the political willingness to take decisive action when it chooses to do so. Yet when it comes to Israel, which continuously violates the international law and committed the recent annexation as we are talking about, Europe has not imposed even a single sanction package, offering dozens of excuses to justify its inaction. This exposes the cynicism and the duplicity, not to mention the hypocrisy of the European position. Therefore, we must not be deceived into believing that Europe's stance is better than the United States. In fact, Europe's position is, I believe, in my vision, is far worse and more cunning, as the US at least openly and clearly supports Israel, whereas Europe covers up the crimes with hollow humanitarian rhetoric and symbolic and meaningless gestures.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, what are the steps that can be taken from the Arab or Islamic countries to counter the Israeli escalation?
Well, actually, I think I call upon all Arabs and Islamic countries to shoulder their historic responsibilities toward the Palestinian cause and to work on building a unified pressure, pressure front, politically, economically, diplomatically, and leaves no room for Israel and the West to trample the Palestinian rights. No one should expect that Egypt alone should bear all these burdens. The sacrifices are great, but we need true solidarity and unified position, which can change the equation and provide Palestinians with the necessary support and reclaim their rights to protect their existence.
Well,
this
Mr.
is not just a Palestinian issue. It's a cause for all Arabs and Muslims and a matter of international justice that will not die, no matter how long the struggle lasts.
Well, as Egypt reaffirmed its commitment to a two-state solution and the ceasefire in Gaza, as the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said on Wednesday. How do you see this statement regarding the humanitarian needs and the political instability?
Well, first of all, the Egyptian government and the President himself, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, have reaffirmed one time after the other our full support of the two-state solution and a Palestinian sovereign state on the borders of the 4th of June 1967 with East Jerusalem as the capital. However, the most important bloc who should be helping to achieve this is the Western bloc. And I think that the two-state solution in reality and even what we hear about from the Western Bloc to support this solution doesn't look more than a tactic to absorb and diffuse the Palestinian and Arab and even Islamic anger. The truth is that Israel has repeatedly and explicitly declared that no Palestinian state will exist under any name. We've heard this from all the officials. They are not hiding it. Even the recent annexation that led us to have this intervention right now is a decision to reconfirm once again the abolition of any prospects of this solution. These are the true dimensions of Israel's plan, openly declared and aiming to completely eliminate the Palestinian cause. Therefore, we cannot rely on this rhetoric. We must look clearly at the political and the on-ground realities. We have to work harder to convince the West to really pressure Israel and block all aid, especially military aid to Israel, to comply with the international law and with the UN resolutions. As for Egypt and the other countries that supported this, this is a repetition of their position that has always been known. What we want is that the countries that really support Israel militarily and politically and diplomatically, those countries who have to really work for the two-state solution, or will be just calling this solution in a hollow, in a vacuum that will not have ears to listen to it. Because Israel has made it quite clear that it does not have any intention of accepting any kind under any nomination of a Palestinian state. So actually I am not optimistic that Israel on it or alone will accept this. Without a real pressure from the West, we will continue to have our position as we mentioned it, and Israel will keep acting totally in the opposite direction.
Well, as you mentioned, Mr. Ambassador, that the joint statement refers to the UN Security Council resolutions as all of them attempts to legitimize the occupation that it's under the international law. How binding are these solutions to Israel, and why they haven't effectively enforced so far?
Well, actually, the international law does not have a police to implement the resolution. We have a resolution called 242 since 1967, and this resolution until today has never been implemented actually. So the idea is not about the resolutions that we need to formulate as much as we need to implement any of them. And unfortunately, with the current American administration, we do not see any hope in the possibility of implementing any of these resolutions. The resolutions are there. We should not be looking for new resolutions. Actually, what we need is to re-implement or start to implement the resolutions already drafted and recognized by the whole world, including the United States and the Western Bloc. But at the end of the day, we don't see serious or real political willingness to impose these resolutions on Israel, and accordingly Israel will never comply with it. We've never seen in history a country, an occupation country, that would simply leave the occupied territories simply because they have a clear conscience. Unless there is real pressure, Israel will not move an inch. And with this new resolution of the Israeli Knesset, that will definitely be approved by the United States, the situation is becoming more and more gloomy because there is no real power that can put pressure on Israel. Even the Arab countries who are supposed to be the one pushing for this, I don't think that they are all on the same wavelength. And accordingly, there is not one united pressure with the United States to force Israel to comply and to accept not to annex more land from the Palestinian lands to its territories.
Well, Mr. Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, dear viewers. Stay tuned for the coming updates on the top of the hour. This was Sarah Slim. Thank you for watching.